Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna do another video on the subreddit r/letsnotmeet. If you don't know what that subreddit is, it's essentially a subreddit where people post scary stories that are supposedly true, so just for the fun of this video, let's assume they're true, or else it's kind of boring to read stories being like, this is all bullshit, right? Before we get into the video, I wanted to thank today's video sponsor, that is Shudder. Shudder is a premium streaming service from AMC Networks. This service was specifically created for fans of thrillers, suspense, and horror. Shudder has the largest and fastest growing human-curated selection of thrilling and dangerous entertainment. You can stream great thrillers, horror, and suspense for $5.99 a month or $56.99 a year. To try Shudder for free for 30 days, go to shudder.com and use promo code ReadyToGlare. As you guys might know, I've had Shudder for years, and there are a lot of my favorite movies that are on Shudder. Two examples of those favorite movies are VHS and VHS 2. I don't really want to spoil the plot for you, but let's just say if you like found footage movies with elements of the paranormal, I definitely think you would like these movies. I strongly suggest them. Thank you again to Shudder for sponsoring this video, and remember to try Shudder for free for 30 days. Go to shudder.com and use promo code ReadyToGlare. Anyway, let's get into the creepy stories. So per usual, I'm not going to read the titles of these stories because it kind of gives away what's going to happen. Also, I apologize if my glasses have a really bad glare. When I was in college, almost a couple decades ago, I got really sick, and I went to the school's health clinic. I was super out of it, and they sent me to the emergency room. After a bit of time passed, it could have even been a week, I don't remember how long, I was in the cafeteria with my husband. This guy approached us and introduced himself to me, telling me that he was the person who gave me his seat at the clinic. I had no recollection, but okay, fine, a thank you was in order. He said I was pretty messed up that day and asked how I was doing now. After that, he kept coming over to me all over campus, and each time he would remind me that he was the guy who gave me his seat. One day I received a message on a primitive social media type site that no one today has heard of. I didn't have identifying info on the site, but I'm sure it had pics of me. The message was from the guy who had given me his seat. He wanted to chat with me on AIM. I have no clue how he found me on that site, considering it was for a very niche audience that he didn't seem to be a part of. We talked on AIM, and it turned out he knew a lot about me and had been following me for some time. 2 years before he gave me his seat at the clinic, he told his friends he was going to fuck me. Yes, 2 years beforehand, and he admitted this for some reason. He was in a serious relationship, so I don't understand any of this. Fast forward several years, and he found me on Facebook and added me. I didn't accept the request, then he friended my friends on there, and whenever I commented on their posts, he would comment too. I ended up blocking him. It has been several years since, and luckily I've not heard from him since, but let's hope I don't. Now, while this story, nothing like really crazy happens, like admittedly this is very creepy, the idea that you're watched for so much time and you don't know it until someone literally tells you or something happens to make you notice it is such a scary idea for me, because if I put myself in that position, it could be like someone's been watching me for 2 years and I have no idea. Like someone is slowly gathering information about you and you have no idea. And that is very unsettling. Like someone could be watching you right now and learning your routine. And I'm not doing that to scare you or make you buy like a new lock for your door, though I don't think it's ever a bad idea to buy a new lock. But that's what's specifically unnerving to me, because there's no way you can really know unless they fuck up or even more creepily decide to tell you for some reason. Anyway, let's move on. So a little backstory. I was a dancer for 6 years. I've worked in many cities and clubs. At the time of the story, I wasn't a rookie. I was well versed in the industry. At the time this took place, I was like 20 or 21. It was also in Texas at one of the upscale clubs. I never imagined something like this would happen in this place, but apparently I was wrong. I started my shift at about 6 p.m. I like to get there early and meet some of my regulars before the crowds came in. It was like 8:39, and this really good-looking guy came in with some friends. They were all older, like 40, 45. I grabbed some of my hustle friends and we went and sat with them. It wasn't hard to convince these guys into a VIP room with bottle service, but this is where it gets kind of weird. The guy I was talking to wanted a separate room for just us. I thought maybe because his friends seemed rowdy and wanted to party hard, he wanted to have a more relaxed area. I wasn't complaining because that meant I wouldn't have to share my cut of the room, so stupid me saw dollar signs and went with it. We get 2 bottles of Dom Pérignon, some mixed drinks, and shots. Now, a lot of the guys that come into strip clubs really want to let loose and bought drugs as well. These guys had just about everything besides crack, meth, and heroin. I was definitely a party girl at the time too, so I partook in some of these, but I also wasn't stupid. So at this time, we were all hanging out in one room together. I took a little hit of coke off the back of my hand and continued drinking. After we were all hyped up and ready to party, my guy pulled me into the other room. This guy was like 6'4", obviously worked out a lot, and was attractive. I, on the other hand, without my heels, was 5'6" and like 120. I sat down in his lap, started talking to him and laying down my moves to get him to empty his wallet, basically. We were having a good conversation, and my bouncers were really good about checking up on the girls in the rooms because they're pretty secluded on the second floor. After about 20 minutes of talking, something snapped, and all of a sudden he literally puts his hand around my neck, lifted me up, and slammed me against the back of the couch. The couch backs were tall and padded, so it wouldn't have been heard on the other side, plus with all the music. I was literally frozen in fear. After almost 3 years of dancing, I had never been in this situation. He started calling me names, spit in my face, and his grip on my neck would get tighter when he would feel me take a deep breath like I was going to scream. Luckily, there were also VIP rooms across the large overlook, and a bouncer noticed me kicking and flailing. I faintly remember all of the bouncers running into the room. They had to pry me out of his hands. When I was finally back sitting on the couch, they had him on the floor outside the room, and his buddies acted like they didn't even know him. My manager grabbed me and carried me like a baby to the dressing room, asked me if I needed any medical. I said no, I was just really shaken up. His buddies talked to my manager and basically gave me guilt money for that happening. Apparently he was going through a shitty divorce and just snapped on me instead of his ex. To the guy at the club, strippers are people too, and let's not meet. This is what really scares me about strippers, like for strippers, not about them, but the fact that they don't really know who's coming in, and I feel like that's very scary. And obviously I don't know how possible it would be to fucking background check anyone who comes in, and even then there are plenty of people who are fucking crazy and don't have a criminal record, so either way, I feel like we're fucked automatically. If you are going off into a separate VIP room or whatever the case may be where you're in a separate location, if you have bad bouncers or bouncers who are understaffed or just not particularly cautious, you can end up with a situation like this. And the scariest thing is when people snap like this, because I think we've all been in some situation, even if it's completely minor, where we've seen someone shift drastically to the point where it's scary, whether you're in a violent situation or not. Even just having someone be verbally abusive towards you after being completely normal is jarring, to say the least. So I'm glad this club had bouncers who were attentive. I'm glad this person is okay, but holy shit, this guy should not be allowed in that strip club ever again, hopefully. Let's move on to the next story. So this isn't one of my paranormal experiences at the local port, but it still creeps me out when I think about it. A lot of spooky shit happens to me for some reason, but that's beside the point. Last year, 2018, was a very busy year for me, meaning that I had little to no time to date or meet any girls. Due to my busy schedule, I decided to make a Tinder account. I've never had any experiences with such app or online dating, and I didn't plan on meeting up with a random girl to go on a blind date or anything. I just wanted to see what the fuss was about, and if that shit actually worked. So the app still being something new to me, I matched with this pretty girl. She seemed short, light-skinned, and had a nice smile. Her account wasn't a catfish or any sort of fake profile, it seemed genuine and legit. Anyway, I know that I didn't actually want to hit it off with any girl in this manner, but she was very hot and I said, fuck it. So I slid into her DMs with a simple, hey. A couple hours went by and we got each other's Snapchat users and phone numbers. We exchanged Snapchat photos, so with that said, there's no way that her Tinder account was fake. I felt better knowing that for some reason. She said she lived in the city that was about 25 to 30 miles north of mine. I had nothing planned for the next day, and neither did she, so we decided to meet up at her house the next day to quote-unquote mess around. The next day came by and we planned to meet up at around 10:30 p.m. The neighboring city where she was from was about a 30 to 45 minute drive from my place, so at around 10 p.m.-ish I decided to start driving over. As I'm driving over, I get a phone call from her telling me to go over at a later time, around midnight. I didn't mind since I have friends who lived in her city, so I paid them a visit meanwhile I waited for her. 11:45 p.m. rolled by and I started to drive to her place. My friends didn't know what I was up to, they just thought I popped in to visit them randomly. So this girl sends me her address, and at first the address that she had sent me led me to this upper-class suburban neighborhood. I reached the address and it was close to what I would describe as a white mansion. I called her to tell her I was parked on her driveway and I asked her to come outside so I could assure myself I was at the right place. She said, I don't see you. Are you sure you followed the directions? Well, to avoid any more fuck-ups, she just sent me her current location through iMessage. At first I found it odd, but I followed the directions to the location anyway. So midnight rolled by and I was on my way to her current location, which was kind of far from the address that she had originally sent me. As I'm driving, the directions are telling me to drive off the path and into a dirt road surrounded by cornfields. This spooked me a little because I was now in the middle of nowhere and I was about 10 minutes away from any civilization. Red flags started to go off in my head, but I ignored them because there's no way that her account could have been a setup. I'd seen her pictures on Snapchat and you can't Photoshop those as far as I'm aware. So after driving through a dark-ass dirt road through the fields, the directions had led me to a broken-down old house. It looked uninhabitable. There were no cars outside or in the driveway. The only light I saw on was on the porch light. I called the girl to tell her I was outside. She replies with, "Okay, I'll be right out." On a side note, I'm a pretty big dude and I train every day. I'm not intimidated by others, but there are some situations where you're helpless and have no option but to evade for the fear of your life. So I'm waiting by my car and I see this figure come out the front door. And it was dressed like a fucking nun. Black veil, long black dress, voodoo charms, and she's also holding a fucking voodoo doll on her left hand. I was pretty spooked out, but I thought it was just a prank. I gave it a few seconds for the cameras to pop out, but the person just stood there. I slowly started to realize that it wasn't a prank because a few seconds later, I saw another figure in a similar black outfit peeking out of a door and starting to make a run towards me with a fucking machete. I don't even bother trying to fight back because I knew I probably was going to end up gutted or skinned alive by these psychos. I immediately jumped in the car and floored it the fuck out of there. I then heard a gunshot a few seconds later behind me. I'm in my car screaming prayers with tears in my eyes because I was hoping to drive away with my life. Her number then kept calling me as soon as I left. I blocked it, and then another number started calling me. I blocked it as well. I ended up staying at my friend's house that night. I explained everything that took place, and he wanted to go check it out together with our group of friends, but I was too terrified to even go back there. I called the police, and they went to go check, but the place was abandoned by the time they got there. They said the address has been vacant for years, and they simply made a report out of it. They were never found. The whole thing was a sick setup to begin with. The girl was planning on luring me so they could do God knows what to me. I deleted my Tinder account. I'm pretty sure it works if you're only looking to get laid, but I somehow had the worst luck the first time I ever decided to use it. Don't ever meet a stranger somewhere that isn't public. Shit can always go sideways. I feel like this story is actually really important because a lot of people are on Tinder, and granted, I've not been on Tinder since I met Jacob, but even back then, I made the rule with myself that I was never gonna meet someone in a non-public place. And even then, I feel like I would never give out my address to someone. Like, even being the girl, you know, like pretending that a guy is coming over, never give someone your address. Like, even if you're in your comfort zone at home, you don't know who you're meeting up with. Like, apart from them potentially being a catfish, like, they can look exactly like their pictures and still be like fucking psychopaths. So I'm glad this dude is okay, but holy shit, be careful because things can go wrong. And it doesn't even take that much for things to go wrong. Like, they could be giving you a ride home. They could decide to lock you in the car. Like, they could decide to drive you somewhere and do God knows what. You know, it's just so easy for things to go wrong. So please, by all means, if you guys use Tinder or whatever dating app, please meet them in a public area. And always tell someone where you are. If you have one of those apps that has your location tracking, I would also suggest that, just in case anything ever goes wrong. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and also thank you to Shudder for sponsoring this video. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments down below, if there was a story that freaked you out the most, if you had an experience similar to these ones. Anyway, let's get right into the fan art.